change his order.
That's right.
Let's get a deduct off his price for that.
Do that or demand another pun sometime.
This pun's
I forgot about that.
Goldilocks fun.
Goldilocks of the
Yeah,
three
It was,
bears.
it was the reverse.
Reverse, yes.
I pondered that one.
I refused GPT and it cracked.
Okay,
It's like
that'd be the same thing, you couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
There was not enough water or power in that data center.
Where are y'all?
In a hot air balloon in Mexico.
Oh, cool.
Okay, what's the pyramid in the back?
That's just like an old archaeological.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, looks like fun.
And lots
It
of
was
lots
fun.
of
It was my first time in a hot air balloon. It was very
Around
cool.
And
here,
lots
we
around you.
shape our landfills like that.
So those who find our landfills in the future are gonna be like, oh, what were they building?
That's
What
a
did they
cool
worship
feature.
here?
Yeah.
Okay,
Are you ready now?
Yep,
then?
we're ready.
All right, so we've already called the meeting to order at 9:00. We're first up will be the consideration of approval of minutes from the February 12th, 2026 ad hoc Reconstitution Committee. Hope you've all had a chance to review the minutes. I will consider a motion.
Make a motion.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Hart.
Second.
Second. Any discussion, comments, questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to item C, since we know that the attorney's lagging just, oh, is he on there?
He's on.
Lawrence, you awake?
Live and kicking.
Ah, boy, that does not, you didn't really sell it to me on that one. All right, so Lawrence, we have you up first to give us an update on the South Carolina Senate Bill 829. Are you ready to do that?
Yeah, of course. If
Okay.
y'all may remember, I went and testified in the subcommittee hearing 2 weeks ago. Languished a little bit, and we sent a follow-up to Senator Alexander earlier this week, and it got queued up for full committee and was advanced out of full committee earlier this week. So I was not in attendance, but got a follow-up from the legislative staffer who is in charge of shepherding the process through the Senate, and advised that it had gone through, and Angie had also confirmed that as well. So we now move to the full Senate floor. As y'all may remember, we don't have a crossover obligation any longer, so that's not an issue about clearing the deck on the Senate before a date certain. And so I think this actually represents like the middle of the road, the 9-week break in the 18-week legislative session. So we have 9 remaining weeks to get this thing through, but coming out of committee and getting a hearing and getting a favorable report to get to the floor is always a really, really good step. So I think we'll have, if anyone's going to raise any issues about it, that typically happens at second reading on the floor. First reading is kind of just a matter of course. Second reading is where any substantive debate will occur, and then third reading happens as a matter of course. So don't have any reasons to suspect that we're going to have issues, but we'll continue to pay attention to the bill and watch it as it moves forward. But otherwise, in pretty good shape that things are moving forward.
Yeah, and Lawrence, I just want to tell the group here, between you and Chris, you've had some discussions with other joint water and sewer authorities in the state. And so, I mean, I think that's been very beneficial when those questions come up, that you guys are able to talk to them.
Yeah, we were very intentional about reaching out to the ones that, we jointly represent, and folks that we knew we had contacts with in advance. And then the ones that actually had some questions about it, we were very thoughtful and spent some time talking through the issues that they had in order to get them comfortable. And so I think it's all in all a very positive step. And the legislative process is never easy, but we do seem to be making headway on the process. And so you never know what could theoretically get in the way, but feel pretty good about where we stand currently.
And Lawrence, no amendments?
No amendments.
Okay. And in your conversations,
other than the limited ones that we had requested.
and in your conversations with other folks, nobody's got any that they want to tack in there, trying to.
No, and that's one of the things that
Yeah.
Lawrence is monitoring really closely.
Okay.
That's right. And you never know, Kevin. I mean, the problem is with the process is that if anything is germane to our bill that could theoretically get stacked on and then becomes a political tipping point for someone to make issue with it, that certainly could happen, but we're unaware of anything at this point. But we'll certainly pay attention, keep our eye on the prize, to allow things to keep moving forward.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions for Lawrence? All right, and just so you guys know, we like to include everybody, even though this is a formal committee meeting. If y'all have anything you want to say, please let me know. We'll be happy to entertain it. If you have any questions for Lawrence at this point. Okay. All right, Lawrence, thank you very much. Moving on to item number 2, update on Raftellus and First Tryon financial studies.
Yes. So I have passed on the contracts, letters of commitment that were approved by the full OJRSA board and executed by Chris. So both First Tryon and Raftellus are aware and they are ready to get started. As we've talked about, the First Tryon work will kind of come in later after Raftellus does a lot of their work. I've got an initial schedule from Raftellus. So they're planning to kick off their work in early April, and they should be done by August, September timeframe. So kind of in keeping with how long we thought that would take. And then of course, like the First Tryon will come in and they're going to coordinate directly with each other. I told them that's fine. They know each other. They've worked together. They've done similar studies together. So I feel very good about that. They do have access to all of the data that you guys have provided through the study, as well as additional data that you've provided since then. There may be some more, like recent budgets, recent audits, things like that. So we will get that to you after they take a look and go through all the files. And they were able to see a listing of that Catherine prepared, or one of her folks prepared, of all of the documents that we had, but we did not want to give them access to everything until they were contracted with you all to do this work. So now they have that access and they can go through and, but we'll let you know ASAP about what is needed from each entity in order to, for them to do their work. It won't be a lot. It really is things like billing data, the most recent budgets, audits, things like that. So.
All right, Angie, thank you. Any questions, comments for Angie?
I got a comment. I think you ought to recognize our visitors there, since some of the people don't know who they are.
Okay, well, I will, Mr. Hart, I'd like to welcome Mr. Matt Durham, Chairman of Oconee County Council, and Mr. Stuart Jones, our new county administrator. Welcome to our first discussion, your first discussion in person on poo. I mean, it doesn't get any better.
He was more of the view from the conference.
Is he still new after the fire he was done?
Well, it was his first one here.
Keep coming back, so that's
That's positive, right? Yeah.
And if you ever can't sleep at night, they put this on YouTube, so you can go back and watch it over and over.
Very good.
And I want to know what algorithm you use if you get this on feed. So
Okay.
yeah.
I'd like to state too that Mayor Oliver
Okay.
just joined us as well.
Welcome, Mayor Oliver.
Yeah, finally.
Did you have to take a young man to school this morning? Did he make the bus?
He made the bus.
Okay, all right.
And you want to let Cam introduce himself?
Oh, I'm sorry. Cam.
Oh yeah, Cam Spencer, Goodwin Mills Kaywood. Good morning.
Good morning. And we have Mr. Tony Adams. I won't leave you out. Welcome. All right. Any other comments or questions about the update on Raftellus and First Tryon? All right, we'll move on to item number 3, recap and update on one-on-one meetings. Angie, Catherine, and Joel will give us an update.
You want to start?
You were on your
Sure.
first.
Yeah. So I think that's just alphabetical. So no. So we have. What we're going to do is tell you who we've met with so far. We have met with all of the entities, with the exception of Oconee County. We would like to get that one scheduled. I think they have been very positive. I think that there is an understanding and an agreement that something has to be done and something needs to change. Of course, each entity has their own issues and concerns, and our goal through this process of talking directly with each entity one-on-one is to flesh those out so that we don't get to the end of the process and have grenades thrown in at the last minute, because this is not an easy endeavor, and we know it's going to take time. So we appreciate, and I think everybody has appreciated having those conversations. It goes a lot to our continued attempt to make this as transparent as possible. And Chris, we're going to also do a one-on-one with you as well coming up. So we want to schedule that, and we will keep doing that, because as this continues to progress, when we're in the early stages, it's out there, it's theory, it's a possibility, but now we're actually working through the process, so it's becoming more real. And so I think a lot of these issues are going to keep bubbling up, and we just want to deal with them as best we can. I don't think everybody's going to get everything that they want, but our goal is to get everybody as close to that and in agreement, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to make this successful.
Did you learn anything earth-shattering, show-stopping kind of thing, deal-breaking?
I don't think so. I mean, I think there's still some work to be done, and we knew this was the case on what the actual makeup of the new board is going to look like, how that's going to be configured, and of course the legislation has a lot to do with that. So we knew that was going to be a thing that we were going to have to continue to massage and work through to make sure that it's a good fit for everybody.
Did you hear anything that you hadn't heard before?
I heard statements I had not heard before, but I had assumed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So didn't really, I don't know that we learned anything that was shocking. We learned some more about the personalities involved, which I think was very good for this process, to understand where the messaging is coming from different people. So I think that was very helpful, for me anyway.
Right. And I think we also heard that everybody is in full agreement that as we get further along, that the messaging, the public-facing messaging, needs to be consistent across each entity with what we provide, and that's going to be critical as well.
All right, y'all have anything else for your update?
I think in general, it just hit on, it's reiterated items that had maybe even come up 2 years ago that now lend itself to a communications memo, which we're going to go over some future memo ideas here shortly. And then just some general better understanding of all of the options on the table. And so you were our first meeting, Westminster, you happen to have like candy on your table, and it kind of made it easy to be like, okay, option 1 is this, option 2 is this. So we've tried to make that into a schematic per request of y'all, and also Wahala requested that too. So we're going to look at that today and talk through those options. And then just like other action items in general regarding understanding the wholesale agreement, which is again why that's on today's agenda. So yeah, we've got some things to show you.
Joel, anything to add to the report?
No, like I said, I think it's it provided what we had hoped it would, is some good, honest conversation around what we assumed obstacles we needed to work on, and so I think it provides us a path forward.
And I think the obstacles are not new. I mean, anytime you go through this process, it's the same. This is the kind of stuff that comes up. So being able to work through it now is going to be beneficial.
And I think it just reiterated where we are today took many, many years to get there. And with that, there's a lot of baggage that goes into, a broken system over many years. And so it's hard to fix overnight. In fact, you can't fix it overnight. So you just got to start the right path and the right process to where you have it in place, and hopefully 10, 15 years down the road, people will forget the broken system and they'll have a better system. So.
I think we did want to give opportunity during this item if anybody wanted to share something with the bigger group that they shared with us that they felt was helpful for everybody to hear. And granted, we haven't met with you yet, and we haven't met one-on-one with you yet either, and they're all very welcome to chime in as well.
I'm just enjoying listening.
And with that, I think we'll open up if there's any suggestions on how, as we do these moving forward, things that we as a team could do to help facilitate it better, that you didn't like about how we did it, or we're open to that kind of criticism too. So.
Yeah, because that was not, those meetings were not meant to be a one-off. We want to continue to do that because, again, I think to reiterate what everyone has said here, it's valuable. It really is.
And I think one message we want to continue to get is, as a team, we're working for the success of the process. We're not necessarily working for OJRSA. We're representing, a path forward. And that's what we're promoting, is trying to come to that. So just want everybody to understand that this is not ours.
Right.
This is yours. And so.
Well, appreciate your hard work on that. Does anybody else have any comments or questions for our group here?
I'll give you one. This may be premature, and I may be jumping ahead. Are we gonna get the estimates on what it takes to buy these suppliers today?
Yeah, that's part of the financial studies that will, that Raftellus and First Tryon will be undertaking. Yes, sir.
Okay. I thought I read that in the minutes, and I was looking at this, and I was beginning to wonder if we was bypassing it.
No, sir. In our one-on-one meetings, we recognize that the financial elements of this are critical. What are the rates going to look like for everybody? What are the valuation components? Because that's going to be different for everybody as well. So that's part of this process, and that's a critical path item, and that's why we wanted to go ahead and move forward with it. I think that regardless of the ultimate outcome initially, I think that the information that will be provided through at least the Raftellus study is going to be beneficial for everybody. So.
Do you want me to join the Teams meeting so that virtual people can see the share screen?
Sure, that'd be.
I don't know if I'm invited to it. I just
Yeah.
realized.
Could you not invite Kat? Goodness.
I'm invited to the meeting, but not the Teams meeting.
Mr. Hardy, any more questions related to that?
No, I see it. I'm sorry that I jumped ahead of you, but I was afraid you was gonna miss that, and I was interested in it.
No, that's a great clarifying question, and I appreciate you asking
email.
it, just so it's clear for everybody, so.
All right, so we'll give Catherine just a second to log on so that Lawrence and Mayor Oliver can see what she's about to show us. We've been looking at her and Joel just having a good time.
Good time in a hot air balloon.
Hot air balloons. We're stuck here looking at poo.
So the first thing we wanted to show you is that visual, and I did print out a few copies. Please note that this is not for public consumption. This is a rudimentary graphic that we quickly produced, and then if you guys decide at some point you want a version of this that would be nice to share with council and be public facing, we will do that. So just I kindly ask that this was made in PowerPoint. My team is much more capable of really beautiful graphics, but I did want to provide this today as just, especially if you're bouncing between the screen and you would prefer to look at something physically in front of you.
And I'm sorry, Catherine, I did not introduce you as item number 4 on the agenda, communications with elected officials and leadership.
Perfect. Yeah, and this is bridging between 3 and 4 for sure. So here, I'll share my screen.
Yeah, because after the candy demonstration with you guys, we use that with everybody.
Okay.
She said, were you trying to buy them off with candy?
we used business cards for the blue boxes, and then we added the little candies. It was, we were just working in the moment with what we had. So, as a reminder, the one thing that we have unanimous support for across everybody we've spoken to already, and welcome input from others, but is the blue box. And that encompasses 2 really critical things. One is an update to the sewer use agreements. As we know, they're dated, there's some contradictions, they're long, and they just need to be resurfaced, kind of rewritten, and everybody seems unanimously excited about that. The second thing everybody feels good about is a change to the board membership. I want to note a couple things here. One, there isn't unanimous agreement on exactly how that board membership makeup is comprised. That's some of the feedback that we got during our one-on-one meetings. And the second thing is that can happen regardless of if the legislation passes. The legislation offers an extra way to do it.
Flexibility, yeah.
But there's still, once the sewer use agreements are changed, there's a way to change the board makeup down from 9 people and also just being able to decide who is part of that board. So that's why everybody gets a blue box. And then we have spoken extensively about the difference between full consolidation and partial consolidation. So full, which is the full equilateral triangle, is all collection systems and treatment are under one entity, and that new entity being the reconstituted OJRSA. Partial is some collection systems go ahead and go under that new entity, the reconstituted OJRSA, while others do not, and they then become a wholesale customer, which we'll talk about a little bit more thoroughly in item 5. And then the reality is all 3 of those options have an addition sub-option, which is bringing Oconee County to the table. Angie and I especially, because we've been involved a little bit longer than Joel, but we have heard over and over and over again that Oconee County had a seat at the table at one point. They don't currently right now. They would like a seat at the table, and so that's representative of the orange dot. And so what we tried to do is just give you a visual to show you really what are all of those options that are currently kind of on the table, and there are endless probably other side options, but these are the main options that have been discussed and supported, and we've gotten some sort of feedback from folks on. So it's up for you to ask questions and also ask if there's any other ones that you feel like need to be represented. And is this clear?
Are each one of the block? I mean, who are those each an incorporated area, or who are those each of the blocks, each of the blue blocks? Who do those represent?
It's not a who, it's a what.
Yeah.
Entity.
It is that basic reconstitution of
I just didn't know if those were affiliated with each entity that you were talking about. Okay.
No,
okay.
this is OJRSA as a whole.
If you took genetics in college, you remember your chi-square, this is what this is. So like the fruit fly, you could get white eyes, white pink eyes, red eyes. This is that sort of.
I just didn't know if this was based on actual like if we're saying, so the first reconstitution block, if that's based on actual, one entity doesn't want full consolidation, partial, or, okay.
So that's where it gets very, very complicated.
Right.
You start adding those pieces of candy to the blocks.
Yes. Yes.
So what we have here really is the 2 rows. The top row is without Oconee County, and the bottom row are the options with.
Correct.
The same options are just the only difference is the county is written part of it. Okay.
Yeah, I would also say that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the previous ad hoc committee recommendation is the second block, correct?
The
full consolidation.
The bottom.
This is what came out of
that's correct.
the reconstitution.
Yeah.
With the county
with the
involved.
county.
Yes.
That's correct.
I missed a piece of candy there, sorry.
I like that I saw that happen in real
You know the genesis of
I was
this.
like gathering all the candy.
She
Kevin's
gets all
like,
the
what are you?
candy too.
Is this clear though? Like, because especially I think both you had council members present and they were like, we just need to see it. And so does this at least add clarity for everybody in the room?
Well, I was like Stuart. I kind of thought each one represented feedback from another place.
No.
But now that you've explained it, I understand.
So this is an accumulation of all the feedback into 6 different options that you heard
Correct.
as part of the feedback.
Well, it is not necessarily the feedback, it's just the options.
Okay.
There is feedback in totality around all of this, but this is what can happen.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else have questions or comments, clarity?
And these aren't weighted in any way. These are just purely
Correct.
restructured options.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and the only option not shown up there, and the reason we didn't is because that blue box is what we have at least unanimous agreement that something has to change. And that's that blue box.
So we don't
Yeah,
have a
there's the
status quo
do
box.
nothing is
Do
over
nothing-
here.
Yes, the do yeah. The do nothing is nothing. Yeah.
All right.
In general, would you like to see a cleaned up, formatted version of this visual in memo format to go out to everyone's council to just explain
I don't.
this?
I think it's going to add more confusion.
Okay.
The
Okay.
graphics are great. I'm like Scott. The stuff that you have up top maybe is good. You start giving me. What did you say that triangle was? Like I didn't remember.
Full consolidation.
An equilateral.
Yeah.
Equilateral
Isosceles.
triangle. Yeah, and then an isosceles triangle. I would get confused with that without your explanation.
Gotcha.
My suggestion, which I think is where you're going, is you leave your narrative up there and go with that.
Okay, so
I think a
maybe
narrative
have
breakdown of
narrative.
the options
Right.
would be
Yeah.
easier.
Sure.
As fun
Just
as
say any
the graphics.
combination of the following.
That's right.
With an asterisk that those could overlap into other options.
Correct.
okay, great.
In other words, we have no idea what we're doing.
All right.
So that feeds right into item 4, which I also printed these out if you are the type of person that wants to see it right in front of you. We'll start going around the table first. So what was great is, we've been talking about future memo ideas that are helpful to explain where we're at and where we're going. And so
Thank you.
these are some memo ideas that came up. I'm going to zoom in here. And the goal is not to necessarily fully solidify a schedule for these today, but if there's ones that you think are ready. Oh, genius.
No, I gave all mine away. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, you're good. So these are topics that came up. Number 1, I think, is something that can happen anytime. We don't need more additional information to help with this conversation, but we heard time and time again in these one-on-one meetings, and it's mostly not from people who are sitting in this room, but people who are invited to those meetings, just sewer controls growth. And we all have a really hard time with that statement because it doesn't. And we really reiterated this in the master plan. I think it came up in the feasibility study, but no sewer entity that is not a municipality or a county has land use control. Land use control will today, tomorrow, and into the future in Oconee County, should OJRSA stay as the entity it is today, will lose their land use control. And so re-articulating what land use control is, what it means, that gives you zoning power, it gives you the ability to choose your annexation ordinance laws. It also provides you the opportunity to institute other really cool land use controls like agricultural protection areas. All of those tools remain in the toolbox of the municipality or the county. And I think the public gets confused about that. I think council members get confused about that, and so that was loud and clear as like an idea. And so I want to talk through that one really quickly and see if you want us to get that one drafted up.
I mean, but obviously sewer expansion can dictate and have a causation effect on growth and density, right?
100%.
So it may not impact land use control, but it does have an impact on land use from a growth and development standpoint, depending on where accessibility occurs or expansion occurs, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I think there's got to be at least a causation explanation there.
Cause and effect, yeah.
Well, I think that's something, we get asked about this from time to time, and I think there's been a statement, and this, going back several years, mainly with the master plan that we did, and I'll jump over this map here, that currently there's no mechanism for us or anybody that I'm aware of to deny sewer in any of these agricultural areas between here and the interstate, which is where we heard from those folks down there that they did not want the sewer. They did not want development. They, I know they showed up in force at a county council meeting back in 2022 or 2023 stating that, but if there's a developer that's willing to go in there and fund the extension and the service to do it, we don't have a reason or a way to deny them that service. So, they can
Other than land
do what they
Other
want.
than land use.
Other than land
That's
use.
right, that's
And I
right,
think
yeah.
there's a direct correlation
Right.
between the two that I think has to be at least represented
Yes.
in the memo, right?
Right.
So, your land use can control that, but if a developer wants to pay for the force main and the force into the existing force main and put in lift stations and spend all that money, it can happen.
That's right.
If
Without
they-
land use.
Yeah, and the unit of government would still be able to control what happens with that land. Are you gonna allow the developer to do what they wanna
But
do?
because that sewer line was put in down to the southern end, that means that has a direct effect on whether growth and density development can occur out there.
Right.
Right.
We've heard too, and I'm saying this mainly for the county folks that are here, because that's, would be outside of an obvious municipal area, that, well, we have two force mains that run in parallel that go from Golden Corner Commerce Park to here that you can't tap into.
Right.
Well, all that has to be done is cut those two pipes in half, send that flow into a wet well, put a pump station there, and then you got another station would be able to connect to serve that area.
So would it be helpful if we did, like role of OJRSA, role of the municipality's role of planning commission, and then explain
How that,
the land use?
I think it would.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I like what Scott said. There's certainly a causation component there, and control versus causation. I think it would be good if you found a way to explain that very plainly.
Yeah. Yep.
In very simple terms.
I got one for you, but this is Georgia sewer. All you gotta do is go to exit 1 and turn and see what they've done with sewer line there and what's happened.
Do you want to elaborate?
Pardon me?
Do you want to elaborate?
Well, they've got about 10 industries sitting right there because they put a sewer line in there years ago. And those industries have moved down there, and the location on 85, their ability to get on 85 has caused that place to look like a little New York City down there with all the high rises.
Okay. So drafting that one for you guys to review as
I think so.
a committee. Okay.
Because I think there's, obviously there's going to be a lot of discussion if, especially from the city councils, if we don't control the sewer anymore, how do we have an impact on economic development and growth or lack thereof?
Right.
I mean, how do we decide not to extend something to an area that a developer wants it? So, I mean, it goes both ways, but I think that's certainly a question is, how do we control our growth and development around our communities if we don't control where sewer gets expanded?
Sure.
And then who makes the decision where to expand, that may have a negative impact or positive impact on the surrounding community? Is that new body, or we lose that ability to say yes or no? and we're giving that to somebody else. I think that's going to be a very important question coming from the elected body.
Right. I agree, and I think, just so everybody, that's something we kind of heard sprinkled throughout all of our conversations. So that's why we thought it would be really important to start those discussions about, because that gets to the root of a lot of the concern about doing something like this, which is the loss of control. And so if we can start kind of tearing down those and explaining that, I think that would be beneficial. So.
But sewer a lot of times will lead growth.
Sure.
But if you say zone something industrial, commercial, or high density residential, if you don't have that sewer infrastructure there, it's not gonna happen either. So it's.
That's why they play together,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I think they work together.
Yes.
And that's where your future land use map can come into handy, because you can have something zoned as something, and then your future land use can reflect like where you want to go.
Right.
But you can't currently for infrastructure or whatever reason.
And it's important for the county as well, because, if the city decides to put in a sewer expansion out to an area in the county, and all of a sudden it's an area that you don't want to see that high density growth, right? You're going to want to know what those control mechanisms are, and who's making those decisions to protect your natural resources out of the county and outside the municipal boundary. So it's an important conversation for every party to make sure we get that right.
Sure.
And build into the system the iterations that continue to make it right, because that's not a one and done. You cannot set up a framework to where this is the way it's going to be. I mean, you got to figure out how to collaborate on those things.
And having the right people on that board to have those collaborative discussions.
That needs to be
extremely
built. That's exactly right. The process needs to be built in. I would say as part of, and I think you touched on it, but if you develop a memo of this, how projects are funded, I think is very important.
Yes.
And who can do certain things.
Right.
Municipalities can do things that a joint authority can't do, as far as funding and providing incentives. Same with the county, and so I think everybody needs to understand how it works. That could work or would work in that scenario.
Yeah, that's good. Good call there.
One thing you're leaving out is treatment capacity too. You haven't got treatment capacity, you're not gonna expand. So I guess you assume that that's a given.
Yeah.
Or expansion of treatment capacity is
One thing I would add to that, and I think it's an offshoot of it, is annexation control and annexation covenants as a condition of that service. Figuring out a way that for those cities that want to use the sewer service as a condition for future annexation, that there is a contractual methodology for
To do that.
ensuring that occurs.
Okay.
Lawrence, I think most of those are always tied to water, because you can't, I guess you could get sewer without water, but I think most of those are tied to water. I haven't heard of any community that uses sewer. Have you?
Well, we use sewer,
I have a couple of municipal clients that only were in the sewer business, and they've used it for that.
Okay. All right.
they've got to have water. I mean,
Right.
they're not going to get sewer without water.
So ours is only tied to water.
I don't think we have anybody that's on our sewer system that's not on our water system.
And
So
I think it can. I think maybe Central has some sewer customers, but they're actually on Easley Water because they didn't expand the lines at one point.
Yeah, I'm aware
I think
of-
it's possible.
I'm aware of some that do
Yeah.
have sewer in
Well,
that.
and I also think that's maybe a good point here, that we reiterated to everyone at this point, is that we are not talking water here. So each
Right.
entity will still control their
In fact, I
water.
think that's what, didn't Cam's dad, Dyke Spencer,
Yeah.
on one of our committees, he mentioned that was a big thing with Beaufort Jasper, if I remember correctly, was that when they were able to work with the city of Beaufort, if I remember right, and let them know that they would still be able to use sewer for annexation.
Right.
That was a selling point for them to turn it over their sewer. Lawrence may know more about it than me, but it seems like I remember Dyke saying something about that at one of our meetings here.
Right. Yeah, no, I think this is good, because I think it's going to start, there's going to be other control-related things that pop up, but I think if we can start hitting this and showing what may happen, but what's not going to happen, and where control still lies, and how things are funded, I think that would be,
That'd have to be a three-party agreement then, wouldn't it?
Lawrence, do you know, can you speak to that?
The three parties being in
it would be a three-party agreement for the annexation, right? It would be the municipality, but they don't control the sewer. So in order to get the sewer, the new sewer authority would have to agree. So that'd have to be a three-party annexation agreement.
So
it wouldn't, the requirement would basically be an obligation as a service commitment for a membership entity to OJRSA to not provide sewer service unless a covenant or petition was filed with the affected municipality as a condition of future service. So the city would actually probably not be a party out to it. That's at least the way we've done it up in the city of Landrum with Spartanburg Water System. But I think there are any number of ways to structure it.
Greer and Greece CPW have some sort of hand-in-hand agreement that they won't, and so the reason sewer comes into play there is because there's other sewer providers on the edges, on the fringes, and so sometimes it's a competition about who they get service from, and so Greer CPW will not provide sewer unless they agree to annex into the city, even though they're two separate entities, sort of.
And that's not technically true. The Greer CPW is the city of Greer. It just has a separate governing board.
Right, I know, yeah.
So it's a close analog, but it's not quite there. And so you just have to be thoughtful about what those conditions for service look like.
Yeah.
Complicated.
Okay. Yeah. So I think again, this is an elephant. We're eating it one bite at a time. I think we have what we need to do with this first one. There's going to be other things that come up. That's why we're doing this.
Okay, that one I thought was going to be the most robust from a conversation standpoint. I think we can go somewhat quickly through these other ones. So item 2 is, it's just been probably 9-ish months since we had a timeline that came out last June, and so there was a request to have an update of the timeline just based on things that have changed, what's been happening. I will note that timing of this is hugely based on the decision happening at the Senate level, so we could update the timeline now and then update it again after there's been legislative decision made, or we can wait until legislative decision is made to do the timeline update up to y'all.
What did you say, there was 8 more weeks left in the session?
I think it was 9.
9.
9, but who's counting?
And what are the odds it really ends, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think the timeline memo can be incorporated into another one.
Okay.
A separate memo or a different memo.
Yes, it would be
So I'm
separate.
I'm looking like the elevator speech, memo, right? You could actually incorporate the update on the timeline in that memo.
Sure.
As part of the elevator speech one, if you don't want to do 2 different timeline memos, right?
Yeah.
Depending on which one we do next, and say, hey, that's a sidebar to this memo. Just to let you know, here's our timeline.
You could probably update it with every memo.
Yeah.
Just include an update on the timeline in each
That would be
memo
good,
that you
yeah.
put out, and that way you have
Is
a
that
regular
helpful?
one.
Yeah.
go through.
Milestones, yeah.
And
Awesome.
And let's just, I've said it, but I want to say it again. This is a target. We wanted a timeline to keep things moving, but I don't want to artificially force this process. It takes it's going to take the time it takes to get everybody comfortable to work through this process. We want to keep it moving. That's why we wanted to go ahead and get the financial studies underway, because we know that's going to be a big decision point when we get to that. So just everybody understand that this is going to be a fluid process. I don't want to back us into a corner that says that we have to be done and a decision made by the end of the year or something like that, because that may not be realistic. I think you used the example of the consolidation in Greenville County was started in the 60s and it finished. We don't want it.
It's not finished yet.
Yeah, it's not finished yet. So we certainly don't want to take that long, but my point is this is complicated. So,
Well, including the analysis by Raftellus and First Tryon in the timeline would be helpful.
That's what we were
Because
thinking. Mhm.
I don't know, when you just reiterated, it's going to be August before that report's done. That gives some people a little bit of time to breathe.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
They've
yeah.
heard a lot about it, and they're like, okay, I don't have to decide it right now.
Right.
I can keep mulling around. So providing that information in your timeline, I think, is is helpful.
So maybe we'll narrow that
Mhm.
that long timeline down to like key milestones and then put it in every memo, and we'll start with this next one and see what you guys think about the format.
Yeah.
That sound good? Okay. The elevator speech,
But the legislation does become an important consideration because
Right. we'll asterisk
in the
that.
next 9 weeks, we're gonna know whether or not the timeline is viable based on the accepted, draft of the act as being approved. Otherwise, it sets us back by a minimum of a year.
Right. Thanks, Lawrence. Elevator speech, that was a request that came out of one-on-one meetings to just have a memo that, like, if somebody gets stopped at the grocery store, specifically council members, what do they say? So we can do that. I think I wouldn't necessarily advocate for that immediately. It might be worth waiting until we know a little bit more. So that might be a good one to do in like a couple months, unless somebody's like, I really want it now.
Well, and I will say, if you start hearing that, let us know so we can get that. Because again, we don't want to, we want to provide something to everybody so that this messaging is consistent. So if you start hearing that folks want that, let us know. Otherwise, I agree. I think we till we have a little bit more meat to include.
To y'all, but you can change your mind if you decide you want it sooner. The last couple we can't do right now because they're really dependent on the results of the Raftellus work and first try-on, but I wanted to start a running list of ones that we know we're going to need in the future. This one is a little bit more nebulous right now because we don't know exactly what the exact things are, so I put what happens when fill in the blank. A sewer backup, who is fixing it? Determining rates, who has a say? So obviously the answers to those questions we cannot give right now, but we can definitely do memos in this fashion later as they arise in topic. Similar with just a standalone memo about rates. I think it's really inescapably clear that even if partial or full consolidation occurs, that there's going to be a change to rate structure, and I think reminding the public of where we started with really diverse rates across the county, depending on where you lived and who your provider was, and saying, this is what the new rate is, this is how it was calculated, it didn't just get pulled out of thin air, this is why it has to be what it is, so that you guys can stand behind some written document and you're not getting bombarded, which, I mean, you're probably going to, but at least you'll have all the same messaging behind like how the rates got created.
Yeah, we also heard that I think it would be good when we do that, we're going to say what went into that calculation, so everyone understands that process of how that was determined.
I think having those questions, even though you don't have the answers, and communicating, we know these are some of the bigger questions.
Okay.
That way it shows that you're at least contemplating, or that we are contemplating those and that we aren't leaving it out.
Okay.
Because the rate question, I think, comes up in most of the discussions I have, and I keep saying, well, there's a point that we get to that, but acknowledging that that's a big question for folks, it could just kind of help them settle back down a bit till you have a
good point.
We have the methodology, and then what they might be.
Do you think Memo 2 didn't cover that enough?
Goodness, Catherine, I don't remember the memo.
Memo 2 was a summary of all of the questions that have been asked so far, and we did it by theme. So rates was on there.
I'm gonna bet you answered it really well in Memo 2, Catherine. But if you could keep that as part of your communication,
okay.
that is, here's something that we know we've got to still address as a big issue, and rates and control. Which control could either be determining the rates, or control could be where the sewer goes.
Right.
Those are things that people, I think, will care about the most.
Okay.
I think one of the fundamental things that we're going to have to continue to get a message about, and you guys can help us in this, is, I mean, I hear overall people think cheaper service is better service. And I get that. I mean, you're trying to keep rates low, but that's something that eventually we've all got to understand. This cheaper is not always better. it costs what it costs. And so that's what we're trying to do, is develop transparent rates that
Well,
show
that's
exactly.
yeah, that's a regular thing we've warned others is not always a good idea to compare your rates to your neighbors.
It's never, it's
The cost is the cost.
So when you modify this candy chart, and put it into a narrative, was the intent to send it to, as part of those memos, out to all the councils? Because I think if we do that, to Kevin's point, these that we say we're not ready for, this wholesale agreement memo, there's gonna be a lot of questions on, okay, if that's the option we choose, what does that look like?
Right.
So I think this is gonna drive the need to answer these that we're not ready to
Right.
answer yet. So
Right.
the timing of this release is gonna impact the timing of this release.
Well, I think it also will help you if you hear a question that you can't categorize under rates or control.
Right.
Then you have something new, which I don't know that you have something that's new in that regard. That was my fault, as Scott said that. I'm sorry, Scott.
No.
So, I mean, I guess that's up to you guys. Are you feel like this needs to be released to your councils?
I think we do. I mean,
Okay.
I think it shows that we're evaluating all options, that we send out those list of things that we're working on,
Okay.
so that they know that, as Kevin stated a second ago, we know we don't have the answer to this yet, but we are working on that, and we
Okay.
recognize the importance, and here's, it'll be ready in sometime this summer, right?
Okay.
So I think and they're gonna have questions no matter what. No matter what time we put the stuff out, it's gonna generate questions, and the more questions we generate now, the more answers we can
That's
provide,
right.
and the better informed we are.
Yeah.
Send it out.
Okay.
Generate questions. Send it out.
Okay.
Would it make sense is when, at the very bottom, where you have the update on the timeline each time, that it's also here are some memos that or upcoming topics that we are still researching and are forthcoming, and then that way they at least know it's coming, but you're just not ready for it yet. Would that help?
I'm happy, I'm
Yeah.
happy to do
Just
that.
generate questions. That's the best thing for us
Yeah.
right now.
Okay.
Perfect.
Very good point.
And then the wholesale agreement, obviously, that has been an ongoing topic, which I'll kick it over to Joel here in a second. But so basically what I've heard is we're drafting 2 memos, one that's really related to like what are the options that are on the table. And then the second piece is really like control around sewer first versus land use, and what are those different options, and keeping that as in simple language as possible, which we've been challenged by one member here to try to keep all memos 2 pages or less, which we are going to strive to do that so that your council actually will read them and they're not like a novel when you guys get them. So we'll work on that. And then in general, what I'd like to do is, as meetings go forward, we're going to turn this into a parking lot list, and any memos that haven't gone out yet but the topic has come up, we'll just all remind ourselves that they're there every meeting, and then say, oh, actually, let's jump on that one.
Right.
So we're ready to go.
So, and feedback of new,
is up for you, if you want to pass them on.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Catherine, is that all you have for item number
Yes,
4?
sorry, that
All
was a
right.
little longer.
No, you're good. Moving on to item number 5, Joel, discussion of wholesale agreement considerations.
So Scott, be ready to get a lot of non-answers to some of your questions. We've been talking through what a potential wholesale agreement could look like, and there's no specifics in here, but we do recognize that people need options. They need to understand what another path is if there's not consolidation, full consolidation, there's partial consolidation. If there are current members who choose not to be members of the future agency, or if there's proposed members who choose not to be a part of that agency, there's going to have to be new agreements put in place. And we term these wholesale agreements, and in essence, that is a lot of what they are, but they're complex mechanisms. They contain a lot of information. And what I've tried to do is, Lawrence is probably cringing, this is not an attorney-generated list of things. These are just things that I've seen in my past in putting things together, kind of how these things lay out. And so you've got 3 major areas that would be a part of a wholesale agreement, and the first being your legal and administrative. This is where somebody like Lawrence or others, your attorneys, get in, and you know, this is the grimy part of it, right? This is the down and dirty items that you have to address to set the basis of the agreement. And I want to point out the first bullet is probably the most important. The purpose of these agreements is that you're explicitly treated as a wholesale customer in its purest form. This would be an agreement between the agency, OJRC, and whatever municipal group is being served. It is not an agreement between the agency and the customers or the users or residents. So you got that just a two-party agreement, which is somewhat different than what you have today. I think you kind of had some of that in the past, and it's been quasi, but that's important to remember, that that's how this, again, you can do it however you want to, but in the simplest form, that's how it would be set up, is that kind of agreement. And so there'll be a severance or delineation of responsibilities and everything else between the two buildings. We'll talk a little bit about that. So you would, in this legal administrative, you'd have to delineate who owns what, right? And that's for the infrastructure, operational responsibilities, customer ownership. That needs to be clearly defined. If it's not, then you're going to have a mess, right? If you don't get that up front. Geographical, we talked about this. That's where you talk about, you know, your annexation and who's going to serve in the future. Where the line's going to be drawn on whose responsibility and ability it is to serve. And those have to be done exclusively, right? You can change them, but you have to have some exclusivity built into that. Obviously, you want to build into there your basis and structure and adjustments for rates and fees. You need to establish what that looks like. Again, party to party, it could be a lump sum at the point of service. You guys have something that most people don't have. Most of the time, you have a single point of connection between, you know, the areas, which is something that most people don't have. So that gives you an opportunity to delineate where that is, okay? And where you would do your billing, on what you would do your billing, and all the different fees that would be applied as a wholesale customer. This would also set up a wholesale customer, this is important, as a different rate class, okay? It doesn't mean, you know, that you should be taken advantage of, but it does mean there's opportunity for have different rates for wholesale customers than you have for your member customers, okay? Capacity and ownership buy-in, you would want to establish how much capacity you already have. That's going to be a complex issue to do that, but also how that's going to be allocated and reserved in the future. And that gets into what you're talking about, future expansions and those kind of things. When you're trying to build expansions based on a contractual agreement, that is very difficult to do, right? You can't pledge your finance.
Joe, I was just going. That is the stickiest issue, probably, of anything associated with a wholesale arrangement between these parties.
Yeah.
The rate is not a particularly difficult thing to come up with because you can hire a consultant. But this question around future growth capacity, contractual capacity in the existing system, and how additional costs get layered in for the treatment side of this operation becomes an issue in and of itself. And so it will be a very unique form of a contract because you're going to have these participant owners working through this joint agency and then a wholesale allocation of capacity under the terms of this agreement. And so this is probably the most important point of any wholesale arrangement.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And it's not easily answered at this point. I mean, a lot of this depends on the different scenarios and how that lays out. It's going to be a difficult one to figure out, but it has to be done. But obviously, you know, you're looking at your terms and conditions. You know, what's the length of it? How can the agreement be reopened under what conditions? When can it not be reopened? What is solid fast? What are the time frames for all those things? Then, you know, severability conditions. How do the parties get out of it, and what does that look like? I should have put that first. I mean, that's the most important thing of any contract is how you get out of it.
Or how do you, once you become a wholesale, how do you change your mind and
Right.
say, I don't want to do this
Yeah.
anymore?
Right.
How do I now join the group,
Right.
and play in the same box? That's probably even a stickier discussion. It's like, wait, I don't
And
want
again, you got to make the wrong decision. This is where you've got to share the risk, right? I mean, there's risk on both sides for these type of agreements. Then again,
And Scott, I think
go ahead.
sorry, but Scott, your point was really well taken. if you become a wholesale agreement and there are significant costs assumed by the agency to run this facility, it's not going to be a 5-year agreement. It's going to be a 25-year agreement. And then the question becomes, you can't tie the hands of the future council governing body of the joint agency or the member entities to admit that wholesale customer contractually, because that's a ministerial function of government. And so the real risk you take is if you decide not to do it, you then are at the discretion of the residual members to let you back in at some point in the future. You couldn't make that automatic without it being unenforceable.
And so I guess what we need to have in there or contemplate is a pressure valve that would allow that. Pressure valve, probably, I'm using Lawrence's horrible metaphors here.
Might be a reverse pressure valve.
How about that? Just a valve that can open to let them back in. Dang.
Yeah, and that's one reason,
for that.
you know, again, you start thinking about these things and the intricacies it would take to get it, it's mind boggling. And so that's why we keep going back to those other boxes.
Yeah.
Because it becomes much easier if you do not have to figure out how to
Right.
work all these things.
Just do it like PIVA, open enrollment every other.
Open enrollment. I hate open enrollment. I can't even remember my login. So again, you know, the first part is largely going to be driven by your attorneys. The second part is going to be driven a lot by Chris and his group, engineers, others, to figure out operationally how do we all work together. I mean, it's one thing to have a legal document. It's another thing. All right, how do we work together to provide the service that we're all entrusted with providing? And so, you know, rules of engagement. How are we all going to just play well, right? What are the different roles? Those things I think need to be a part of an agreement. They need to be negotiated. Obviously, delineation of operational responsibilities, mutual aid agreements. I mean, I don't think anybody wants to enter where you do your stuff, we'll do ours, and we'll never work together. That's not going to help anybody. So figuring those things out and making them happen. If you don't put them in there, then there's a chance that you will not figure those things out. Capacity planning and assurance. I mean, who's going to approve connections? I mean, we talked about that. Obviously, you know, the municipalities, the county has control over, you know, land use, but somebody still has to approve the capacity, right? And that you have to make sure you have it. You have it all throughout the system, and you're meeting the standards internally, but also with the agency and all those things. There has to be a mechanism in place to where everybody works through those processes. Those could be fairly complex at times, and so just making sure that's in there. Monitoring, inspection, and billing process and mechanisms. There's got to be right of entry. There's got to be understanding of how we'll interface with each other's facilities and those sort of things. That has to be an understood thing at all levels. And then CMOM documents need to be incorporated into what are going to be those type of requirements: reporting, inspection, review. What you don't want is everybody to be working in the dark, not understand what the expectations are, what the activities are for the other agencies between each other. Then regulatory. This is where you're going to have to draw an attorney back in to help. This is kind of a combination of all things, but you know, in a wholesale agreement, you got to establish regulatory authority. And there's, again, wholesale customers are treated as users. Unfortunately, you can't delegate all regulatory responsibilities upstream. Chris, I mean, the agency can't say, all right, anything above here is your responsibility. We can't, DHEC EPA does not allow that. Y'all, that's one of the issues you've got. The agency will still retain responsibility upstream for certain things, and figuring out how that works needs to happen. So you got to delineate that, find out, how you'll treat your residential customers, commercial, industrial, those kind of things. You can delegate activities, but you can't delegate responsibility. A lot of those things. What are the permitting and reporting requirements? That's through the CMOM program collection system, FOG, fats, oil, and grease. What does that program look like? What are the expectations? Pre-treatment is one you really need to figure out, because I've seen that rub a lot of times between municipalities and between the treatment agency. That's it's better to have that built into the agreement, how that works, and you're not figuring out. And then capacity assurance goes back into the operations, but there has to be some regulatory control over that, where you don't have connections added without getting consent or at least acknowledgement, cooperation through the agency. That needs to be built in. Any compliance schedules for current non-compliance, and of course, what that looks like for future non-compliance. Any system improvements that are known that need to be, will have to be built into a compliance schedule and a part of an agreement. And then you need to fully understand what the enforcement response protocol would be. If there's a violation, there's an overflow, there's a pre-treatment, customer, whatever it is, and what are the fees for fines, cost recovery, due process through that. That would clearly need to be defined. And as much as you could, if you end up with, hopefully you don't, but if you end up with 3 or 4 wholesale agreements or 4 or 5, as much as you can build these things to be common and how they're applied, how they're built and how they're applied is just helpful to everybody. And if not, you'll end up with similar.
Joel, I think I would layer on top of that. So I thought your summary was really good. It hits the 3 things that I always think of in a wholesale agreement, right? You got to have operation administration, you got to have a rate methodology, and you got to have a regulatory methodology. I think this lays out at a really high level what all of those look like. But I think taking a step even further back into your comment you just made, it really is an existential question as to what this looks like going forward. The recommendation of the ad hoc committee was to accept the collection systems of all the constituent municipalities in order to make this a consolidated sewer entity. That becomes a much more streamlined process because you have a singular provider, but it obviously creates all these downstream issues that we've been talking about all along.
Right.
The flip side of that is if one person wants to go wholesale, it probably makes a lot more sense for Oconee Joint Regional to simply be a standalone treatment provider and turn over all of its collection assets to the individual participants. And so you basically are running yourselves much more in the vein of an Anderson Joint Regional,
Right.
where Oconee Joint just becomes a treatment provider, and then it has individual wholesale agreements that would be standardized among all of the customers that perform the collection services. And so I think if we're having some hybrid approach of either one of those, I think makes this unduly complicated and very, very difficult to administer. And so, if we're looking for a way that is not the fulsome transfer of the conveyance systems to Oconee Joint, I think we need to potentially start looking at a way to decouple the collection assets from the existing organization, because then you could at least have a treatment-only rate and a determination on how capacity is upfitted and allocated on a going-forward basis.
Yeah, that's.
I appreciate that, Lawrence. I had attempted to just pick 2 of the scenarios where we had some consolidation, not all consolidation, and it turned into almost a 2-page memo just trying to explain all the caveats of how this would change, and it is extremely complex.
That's how Santee Cooper operates as well, right? I mean, I know it's a governmental entity, a quasi.
That's correct.
Yeah, but it Santee Cooper is just the treatment plants, and then all the member entities for each of the 2 systems have all the conveyance.
That's also the way Charlotte Water operates.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the larger systems that want to have a treatment-only rate have determined that, but they're not going to take responsibility for your distribution system on the water side or the collection system on the sewer side. It becomes too administratively difficult to differentiate all those various rate classes.
And Lawrence, just for visual purposes and making sure I'm hearing what you're saying, you're almost introducing this other layer here, which is this 4th situation.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
Where it's wholesale only. All of the collection assets are decoupled from the authority, and each entity has a wholesale agreement. Yeah.
I mean, because short of that, we're effectively not solving the underlying problem that we have now.
Right.
Correct? I mean, we have this kind of hybrid mismatch of us owning some lines, us operating some lines, us making determinations on retail service versus wholesale service. And that's what's causing a lot of these kind of functional and operational issues.
Great point.
All right. Any questions for Joel or the rest of the team on that particular matter?
Great summary. Thank you for taking time to do that.
It was painful. Brought back a lot of memories.
All right, so we will now move on to item number 5, committee member discussion. We'll start on this side. Scott?
Mr. Chair, I have nothing.
All right, Chris?
No, sir, nothing.
Mr. Hart?
No, I don't have anything either.
Nothing to add.
Nothing. How about our guests? Let's start with Mayor Oliver on the phone. Mayor Oliver, any questions from you?
She's still on there. There's.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I had to find the button that says unmute.
Oh, yeah, that's always tough.
I'm on it, it takes me a while. Now, I don't have any questions right now. I've really enjoyed listening to talk about wholesale and all that, so.
All right, thank you. Thank you, and then I'll offer it up.
I'm less confused than before I came in.
Mr. Adams, any comments? All right. Well, unless there is an objection, we will stand adjourned.
No O&P committee meeting, so
Oh.
there, just strike it.
No O